biggest trends in viewability. So I'm Steven Suthiana. I'm the global head of digital media and operation for Mansoura Ventures, a company that you've probably never really heard of. But you probably know our brands, Fast Company and Inc. I've been with Mansoura Ventures in the past 5.5 years. We're going to talk about the biggest trends in viewability. So let's just start with who we are as a publisher. As I mentioned earlier, we publish as Fast Company and Inc. Let's just start with a quick facts about Fast Company and Inc. Did you know that Fast Company is celebrating our 20th anniversary this year? And later this year in November, we're going to have a one-week celebration in New York celebrating our 20th anniversary, and there will be a lot of speakers, a lot of keynotes, and it's going to be a really fun event. And the second fun fact is about Inc. Inc. is the first small business magazine that is published in the United States. It started about 35 years ago. So let's talk about viewability. Our view and viewability are evolving, and it will continue to evolve as the technologies itself are advancing. We are at the moment very closely monitoring and looking at the development in the industry, whether it's through MRC, IAB, other vendors, as well as other advertiser and other organizations out there. At the moment, our viewability policies are very closely aligned with the MRC standards and guidelines. We guarantee 70% viewability rate, and our exceptions is also closely aligned with MRC. The exceptions are sponsorship, roadblock, takeovers, mobile, and what have you. And like many other publishers, we're using Moat as our preferred vendor. But the problem here is, while by large, most agencies and advertisers and publishers are adhering to the policy that MRC and IAB set, there are some that are defecting from it. For example, Group M has its own viewability rate kind of a policy, or IBM, or Unilever. And that's not the only problem. The other problem is really about the fragmentation of technology out there. There are many vendors, like you can see here, that has their own set of measurement guidelines, and they're all over the place. I think it's time for us to really consolidate all of these technology partners, and it's almost unfair to expect one publisher to work with, well, 15 plus vendors out there. So what are we going to do as a publisher to address this viewability issue? We at Fast Company and Inc., we're adjusting ourselves, so to speak. So we believe in really good content. What I meant by that is really high quality content and engaging and whatnot. As a publisher, the one thing that we do very well is really writing great content for our consumer. We know exactly what our audience are wanted, and that's what we do best. Another thing that is more likely to do at the moment is really the layout design. Worthy to note though, while the intention is good, the deliverable could be problematic. It could also cost you a loss of revenue, right? So if you're not doing it well, in favor of viewability, you might lose a lot of impressions and therefore a loss in revenue. Another technique that is commonly seen is lazy loading, as well as leveraging your tag containers, possibly, to gain a couple microseconds and the ad load itself. Now let's go over the video. This is what we've done at Fast Company, if you don't mind. As you can see here, we have the big billboard units sticky on the top, and we also have a sticky 300 by 250 that is interchangeable to 300 by 600 and 300 by 1050 and what have you. And next one for Ink. What we're doing at Ink is really about lazy loading. So we have what we call pins. So we have multiple different pins within the homepage of the page or on article pages. And the ad call is being made as you scroll down. Now let's talk about, in the realm of programmatic, I think us as a B2B might not be affected as immediately as our friends in the B2C market. But we're closely monitoring this development for sure. Though what we can expect from the space are the improving ecosystem that is more efficient. What I meant by that is high quality brand safe environment. In this case, like I mentioned earlier, the quality of content is being awarded. The agreements in viewability and standards on vendor reconciliations also needs to be consolidated. It's a little bit too fragmented at the moment. And the third one is the buyer and sellers need to be on the same page on measurement guidelines. We really need to understand what's important and what's not. So we're going to talk about a little bit about adjusting CPMs, right? Because that's probably one of the things that I listed earlier in terms of what publishers are doing to overcome these issues of viewability. So let's talk about the economics of it. For example, if we have a publisher with a viewability rate of 60%, and we have three scenarios. You have no viewability guarantees, you have 70%, and you have 100%. At the budget of $100,000 and a CPM of $25, you need to have a contracted goal of about 4 million impressions. In the first scenario, at zero viewability, right, there's no guarantee. The total serve impression is going to be about 4 million impressions. Your CPM is going to be the same as $25. At 70% viewability rate, you need to buffer it by, let's say, about 10% to offset the 60% of your viewability rate. So now your total serve impression is about 4.4 million, and your net CPMs becomes $23. In the 100% viewability, you need to buffer about 30% or even more. Your net CPM becomes $19. Reality here, the economics ideally should look more like this. So it's the same scenario. You have $100,000, $25 CPMs. But in case number 2, to keep the same eCPM of $25, your vCPM has become $28. On the 100% viewability, your vCPM becomes $33. Now, it is not as simple as just increasing the CPMs. We need to shift our conversation from the CPM increases to value proposition and lead the conversation with value added. What the advertiser will gain from it. Let's talk about engagement. Let's talk about time spent. Let's talk about interactivity with the creative and the content. Let's talk about, well, other actions, social sharing, and other metrics out there. And most importantly, the quality of our content, which translates to the quality of the audience. If the client objectives are met, the conversation is shifting from from prices to value of the impression itself. For example, I'm just going to take it from Integral Ad Science. Integral Ad Science says that 250% of the user are more likely to convert when they are exposed to multiple long impressions of an ad in a view of 5 seconds or more, versus multiple short impressions in a view of less than 5 seconds. And it applies to even one impression. A user exposed to one long ad impressions is 31% more likely to convert than a user exposed to short impression. So, in conclusion, three main things here. We sellers and buyers need to evolve with the technology and not ahead of it. It is nascent and imperfect. Let's share the pain together. Let's standardize our measurement guidelines, whether it's through page scoring or other type of measurement of quality for the environment and, most importantly, the audience. Let's start engaging on conversations on metrics beyond CTR and viewability. I believe there are significant value on time spent, social, and quality of the impressions. With that, thank you. We have a little bit of time, so if there's any question.
Questions?
Yep.
Cool.
It's great. I think the publisher perspective on viewability is rarely heard in conferences like these, so I think that was really great. But question would be, when you're in the example that you gave of where you're transacting on 100% vCPM, and you're increasing the CPM accordingly, are you getting pushback from clients on actually increasing the CPMs in line, such as you showed? Are they still wanting to say, no, we still want 100% viewable, but now to transact at still a $25 CPM, or are you able to see that you're able to increase the CPM as you showed?
Sure. So I think for the most part, our agency partners are pretty reasonable, right? We have some pushback, but like I said earlier, the conversation needs to shift. It's not talking about just the increase of CPMs, but what is the value added that is being added to that, right? So better metrics for the advertiser, better engagement, high quality of audience, and with all of those value added, the CPM questions becomes irrelevant somehow. And we start talking about the quality of that impression at that moment of time. Is there more question?
Hello? Yeah, so it sounds like you're setting up your own standards, or are you using IAB for standards on viewability? Or are you setting your own standards and publishing those to your brand advertisers and to the agencies buying?
Sure. So for the most part, I think our standards are very closely aligned with the MRC and IABs. The only exception there is really in the forms of native and custom creatives. So we invested quite a bit in terms of creating custom creative for our agency partners or advertisers. There are certain units that are high impact in natures that we produce in-house, and for those ad units, we ask that it's not being included in the viewability conversations. It's high impact by nature. We invested quite a bit, and we know that overall the viewability rate for those units are actually pretty good. That being said, we're always, it's on a case-by-case basis, right? We'll always have a conversation with our agency partners. Some are more receptive than others, but at the end of the day, I think we'll try to work it out. Some more questions?
Yes, one more.
Hi, Stephen. Thank you very much. How are you reconciling viewability reporting against the billing? Do you have it into one system, or are you comparing reports?
It's a really good question. So it's a little bit painful, but there are companies out there, for example, Media SQ by SweetSpot or Domo or Tableau or something of that nature that you can essentially create a custom integrations with Moat or other vendors out there to pull all of the information. So we have a business intelligence department that is under mine. What we look at is the compositions of all our site, right? So we have analytics in terms of page views, unique visitors, and tied it into with impressions and CPMs. And we're also looking at the sell-to rate. We're looking at the eCPM. We're looking at the viewability and what have you, and we can look at it and dissect it by sections, by campaign, by page, if you want to, by one particular page of our website. So we developed and invested quite a bit of money and time to create an ecosystem where we could have all of this information that is good for sales and our partners together. But mainly somewhat manual at the moment. Is there more question? Think we're good? Thank you.